Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, disembodied hands, Quindy, disembodied beard, John, and sometimes an iterant Kiki. Although she's avoiding us today. She is sulking because I would not give her an extra bully stick or play with her before the stream because I was already late. Due to doctor stuff. Blame the healthcare system, folks. Like I always do. And usually it's accurate. Good morning. And Julia Trent, thank you for the resub 25 months. I did catch that before I logged in. Hey. Yeah? What are you doing, girly? She's also trying to mess around with stuff that she has no business messing around with. Because puppy. Puppy, are you going to make me kick you out? She's like, I'm very quietly snoodling things I oughtn't back here. Very quietly. Kiki. Uh-huh. I knew you were back in the room you oughtn't be. Yeah, you fuzzball. But you came when I called, so I'm petting you anyway. Petting you anyway. Do you want to come up and see the stream? Do you want to come up and see the stream? Yay, there's a Kiki. Oh, you're good. You're good, Keekers. Oh, life is so hard when you're a puppy. Life is so hard when you're a puppy. I know. So difficult. So difficult when you're beautiful. Right, Baba? Yeah, so difficult. Yes, yes. Look at the camera. Yeah, good girl. Yeah, good girl. There we go. Good girl. Good scritches. Good girl. You know what, though? I'm going to close the door to that back room because I don't want you gnawing on that stuff that I pulled out of the closet 2 seconds ago. Yes, it's a new, and I've never sniffed it before, she says. And it sniffs like Mama's old dogs. Yeah. Good girl. Nope. Yeah, you knew. You knew I was cutting you off and the teeth came out. Yep. Yep. That's the sulky puppy. Princess puppy. Sulky princess. Like, Blazy was the perfect princess, and this is sulky princess. Absolutely. Oh, dear. I mean, she was recovered from ReaperCon the day we got home. It was me who had to recover from ReaperCon. Kiki, I cannot play with you. It's work. Work. Nope. Come on, Bubba. Pick it up and let's take it out. Come on. Let's go. No. She wants me to play with her ball strap. Yes, I'll throw it for you, but then it's all closed out. I can tell this is going to be one of those troublesome Kiki days. Troublesome Kiki days. You go settle, Bubba. You have your chew. You have your toys. Oh, handful, Papa. Mostly he was back in the office now. He's still hacking up gunk and blowing his nose and dealing with all of the after con crud crap. And I still have a little bit of of coughing from the fact that I blew my voice out completely during the con. Other than that, yeah, but Kiki never had a problem. Like, Kiki was just fried. Like, Kiki met more people in 4 days than she has in her entire life up to this point. So, she was just done with being on the road. And the minute we were home, she was like, yeah, I'm back. I'm better. But yours truly, yeah, I needed to recover. So Quindy, I'm going to be on the 22nd after all. I'm still not here tomorrow, folks. I have my annual doctor's thingy. But, due to insurance shenanigans, we all love those, my thingy on the 22nd got canceled and is going to have to be rescheduled for October. So, it is what it is. Oh, it's a quadruple. Quadruple subiversary, quadruple subiversary, quadruple subiversary. Happy quadruple subiversary. There you go. Hey, Nomad Zeke. Yeah, it's like when you find out your previous insurance really didn't get totally canceled, so that your insurance is totally confused and nobody knows what to bill what where, and then you have to stop and make sure everything's better. I will say one thing. And that is because David works for who he works for, that company is big enough to have a private health concierge. Being able to call, get a human the first time, and have that human research what was wrong, figure it out, and then tell me that they would follow up and make sure everything was resolved. I didn't have to. Holy crap, was that ever nice. I wish that for everybody in the world. Like, everybody in the world should have this. Like, but gone, like, it was, I was flabbergasted. It was still a pain, and I was still on the phone for 45 minutes, but, yeah. SSCs. But yeah, so I wish for everybody to have a health concierge thing, because boy, it was nice. All right, now I have to figure out how I'm actually doing this. Oh yeah, I remember. Okay. I had to dig out one of my old Eldar to remember the colors that I use. Sadly, I think I don't have one of the colors I need, so I'm going to have to kind of fly by night here. Although I think I can use, I'm pretty sure I can use Chansia Jade. And after we use that, we need a beautiful green. So let's try to find a beautiful green. No, not that green. No, not that green. That could be a good green for this. And then maybe up to that, but maybe that'll just go in there. I'm trying to figure out how I did what I did back when I did it. There we go. So you could use either, I think, alchemical or dungeon slime, but we'll figure it out. All right, we're gonna work on scales today. I think I'm gonna just try some crap and throw it at a wall and see if it sticks. So when you are painting a textured surface, the thing that people do, including myself back in the day, and sometimes I forget and still have to remind myself, the thing that people do is try to paint every scale individually. That is a mistake. The first thing you want to do is paint all the scales together as a mass. It's not the green I need, Pendrake. It's actually more of a... I need a turquoise, and Tianxia Jade, being a phthalo green, is the closest to turquoise, because I do not have the bright turquoise that I would need. Or if I do, it's somewhere in the closet, and I'm not going to dig for it. No, this is not one of those. This is not one of those model clavicus. In reality, where I find that comes in the best is when you glaze over the green with the magenta, or vice versa, to get a kind of a blue cool cast. I don't often actually use the chemical blue because I find that it's very fugitive and hard to... It's a very muted blue, so it's hard to work with as far as matching colors to it. You'll probably have... The point is, Korniko, you do end up painting scales individually, but not at first. Not if you want your forms to register right. And I think I probably should grab Void Blue because that's what I started with. And that's what I'm going to want to blend into this. So, but you will be... You'll probably actually be happier with the way your dragons look if you do an initial wet blend or airbrush, depending on what you use, getting your masses generally figured out and then highlight in line with that. Hey, lady. It looks a lot better. And if you're trying to do overall effects, like I'm going to be trying to do on here, like an effect that carries over a whole surface, you can't do the individual scales thing. It really won't work. All right, these colors are both very transparent, so I'm going to see what I can do. I might have to do a white underpaint to get this Tianxia Jade to work with the Void Blue. But I'm going to mix both of them up. And then we're going to start doing some stuff. Yeah, that's a nice surprise, Twistedoma. It's nice when it works for you. All right, I'm going to try to put this, but the Tianxia Jade is very, very transparent. It might work here. We'll find out. So what I want is I want to hit all my highlights right up to the point where that falls off to the side. And I still want to leave enough blue to keep my blue effect. So I've got it right coming up to her knee, quote unquote, her lack of a knee there. Maybe a little bit of the green here where her calf, her non-calf calf comes out. And then I want the green here. starts to fade when we get there. So what I'm doing is a blue-green fade, obviously. We are going to attempt to do some really cool color shed here. Yeah, it's a good sculpt. I mean, Christine does really good work. So that green is going to work really well with the hair. We're also going to use the hair in the scales later, the hair color, or something close to it. But I'm going to grab and try to blend a little bit here with the blue. Want to get a little bit so it's not super sharp. And because this is a textured surface, when you're doing wet blends, it's super easy. You're never going to show your brush strokes because the texture is going to hide it all. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, nothing worse is always good. Yeah, that's cool, Twistoma. Very good. Very good prognosis. Just going to do a little bit, just want a little bit of that blue down the middle there. I can always bring it back with some glazing. So I want to get that so we kind of have a two-tone effect going on here. I feel like I've got a little bit of light down there, so I think I'm going to drag this green down there. I kept it close to full strength, so it's actually, the Tianzi is actually working pretty well. I also made it a little thicker than I might have otherwise, like, just as far as how I'm laying it on. So we want kind of a shimmery effect on the scales. And I think I am going to hit the back of this. So I got my first mock-ups of North of the Wind's cover. But I'm going to ask for some changes. So I'm not... when the first mock-ups come in, it's not the kind that I show to you guys because... usually there's like, okay, well, I like this model, but can we get a 3/4 face view? You know, that kind of thing. So you guys will see it when it's closer to good. I have to book my cover artist like a year in advance, so because she's so cool. So I had pretty much just scheduled the next book cover for now. So even though I've just started writing the book, I know what's in it. I have the outline. I know the feel it's got. So there we go. So kind of you're putting the green wherever there are going to be highlights. So just like you were highlighting with any color, only you're highlighting with a totally different color, and you're not doing transitions, so it looks cool and color shifty. Like it's so easy to get that kind of effect. Let me get a little bit of this back here. There we go. Just want that to kind of come out. It'll get more shimmery with time. All right. So we'll let that dry, because as it dries, it's going to come down a little bit. You can see it's already less bright. And that's a function of the transparency of the paint. Sometimes when it's wet, it's going to look a little more opaque than it actually is. So we wait for the dry to kind of figure out how much more we need to do. We're probably going to need to do another layer. Already starting that down here. And where you start to paint individual scales is actually when you're trying to fade in the edges. So like here, this row of scales here, I could do a little bit of the teal on the lower edge to show that the light is catching there, and that'll give me a transition. Just a little tiny bit. And we'll see how much more I want to double down on that as we go. I mean, if you start painting all your dragons like this, except not with the color shift, like, but you start like blocking in, like if you start a red dragon, starting with a darker red like Asmodeus and bringing the highlight up to your clear red or your fire red, you know, with the blends on top of the muscle masses, then go back and highlight the scales. Not only does it save you a lot of time and repeated work on something big like a dragon, but it actually, I think, does look more realistic and better, because that's the way the scales would catch the light. They'd catch the light in a mass. And then you'd have, you know, like here, if I was painting a dragon this way, I would be bringing my void blue in to line between these scales as well. So you get a little bit of that blue and everything. And we may go there, but we're going to... I have not done this particular effect on something with this much texture before, so we're going to be going in baby steps. A reverse mermaid with the fish and the human legs. Oh, gosh. Hey, Kodiak, thank you for the 18 months. Yeah, awesome. So, yes, it faded in a bit, so I'm going to essentially double down on it and go a little smaller. And I want this to be pretty vibrant, so I'm going to go over most of the surface that I went over before. But yeah, my writer brain is pretty much hitting me really hard right now, because I put off I haven't written since I came back from the trip, because I need to catch up on Patreon, because Patreon is number one priority, and my writer brain is not pleased with that. It's pummeling me mightily, demanding that I work on the next book. It doesn't care about responsibility. But once I have my $2 PDF out, I've got a little tiny bit of breathing room, so it'll get its way then. I keep telling it. This is when you've got two different creative things that you like to do and they fight with each other. So I want to get that effect, so it's very strong. Oh, that's nice, Lady Katara. The ear horn. That's hilarious. My dad is hard of hearing and refuses to get a hearing aid. My mom is like, hearing aid, gimme. Like, it's funny how my mom is so much faster to like adapt sometimes. She's like, new technology that will help me continue to live the way I want to? Gimme. You know, Dad is like, I don't need a hearing aid. You know, it's like that. It's so funny. It's so funny to watch my parents, the differences in them. It's the same when they moved to Spain, when Dad was still working before he retired, when his job took him over there, and they lived in Spain for, 2 years, I want to say. Mom was very quick to like start taking language lessons and picking up the language, and Dad wasn't. It's very funny. They say that married people come to resemble each other a lot, but my parents seem to like, as we, you know, all left home and got our own lives and everything, they seem to actually have like spread out a little bit. Like, their strengths are definitely different. Yep, Lady Kachara. Yep, that's where my dad is too, kind of, a little bit. Yep, decided to do some color shifty scales, Agent Marvel. That's where we are today. And I haven't done this this kind of fade on a very highly textured surface before, so we're going to go slow. All right, I'm going to start bringing in some greener green. And we're going to start to play around a bit. I think I want blue liner or corporeal shadow for the scale in between. So you could use any really dark blue or blue-green or blue-purple. Or even a brown if you really wanted to. But I don't know that I would use a brown because we're going for the shimmery effect. I feel like going for a brown with the scales would kind of get in the way of that. So I'm reaching for a Pathfinder color here. Alchemical green is a really vibrant, light spring green. I normally go up to Dungeon Slime, and I'm going to be looking at that transition too with the Tianxia Jade. It's just that I've had to swap up one of my color choices, so I'm not sure if I still want to do this the way I usually do it or if I want to put an in-between stage in. So I'm going to be testing. There. Yeah, the dragon, I did it a little bit different, I think. But similar. The old dragon, the one that we were doing for fun during the Kickstarter. Sorry, cat. And it just wants to clog, folks. It's still cloggy. Still cloggy. No clogginess allowed. Come on. There. Woof, now I got a lot of it. It either doesn't want to come out at all, or it wants to come out in a giant glob. This is the way of paint. So I got my glazing video up, folks, yesterday, for those who have my Patreon. Hold on one second. I need to check one thing. Oh, I could have to do that. I have a very long to-do list today. And already I have to address the fact that I didn't give ratio. I just gave, this is what it should look like. And that was on purpose. But people are already asking for, like, what's the formula? And I'm like, I actually cut the part of the video where I actually did talk about a little bit about formula. So, okay, alchemical green is very, very bright. Hold on, let me pull back and pull up. Very bright. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the Tianxia Jade and pop it in there. That's a nice color right there. Pretty neon. Alchemical green is a really good kind of neon green. And when you pop a little bit of that phthalo blue in there, it gets even more intense. So I'm going to be careful with this transition. I'm probably going to want to wet blend it. All of the fundamentals videos are very, very basic, and this is why I ended up cutting a lot. Like, I digressed a fair bit when I was, I try to stick to my outline really tight, but it's easy to digress because there's so many ways, after the basics, there's so many ways and things that you can do with all these techniques, but I can't put all that in a video, not for YouTube. It's just not going to work. So let's do a little bit of this green and see. So essentially I cut out a lot of that, and when it comes down to it, since this is a YouTube video, I want people to be able to hit the consistency without a formula. You got to look at it. You got to look at the glaze. Is it colored water? Is it too thick? You got to use your brain. Like, this is using your brain, folks. Because I can't give a ratio because different people watching this on YouTube are going to be using different paint lines. So you have to thin it according to what paint you're using. Like, you're just looking for that transparency. This is pretty much what I'm going to come back with, because glazing, and if you want to know what my glazing ratios are, it's out there in a PDF already. The PDF for the thinning MSP paints video, which we haven't linked for a while. Quindy, want to link that real quick? Remember that I did a class back in 2020 during the pandemic. I did an online thing for ReaperCon about thinning MSP paints, and I talk about how much to thin for each of the main techniques, and that is specifically for MSP. I really need to get and block out some time to get some collections done for the Patreon. Because you can do collections now of old content and new content just by subject, so we're going to do that. I missed Inara's good idea. I have to go back. To done list. Funny. If I had that list, it would be so big I couldn't get any satisfaction out of it. Like, I do have a kind of a to-dones, like, just like as far as like my I think my to-doist will show me my completed, and it gives me little flags when I've completed a certain number of tasks, like you've completed 12 tasks today, you know, things like that, which is gratifying. But for my brain, it's more rewarding to just get those tasks out of there, so that I can, once I have all those tasks out of there, I can concentrate on doing fun stuff. I'll bring that up. So I've got a little bit of streakiness with this alchemical green I need to address. That's easy to address with glaze, though, so I'm not going to stress. So as you can see, we're bringing this up as if with layering. So we've got our blue, then we've got our transition layer, then we've got our green. Our green comes up pretty sharp, which, if you want the scales to look shiny, pretty sharp is correct. I'm using a really big brush today because it's going to encourage me to generalize. This is my number 2 Winsor & Newton Series 7. Making yourself use a big brush, even though this one has a really, really good tip as well, is going to encourage you not to get super tight and small. It's going to encourage you to continue to think in large areas, because the brush wants to do that. So we're just going to kind of get that continuing here. I'm going to pop another big drop of water into my green, my alchemical green. David and I ordered a bunch more brown oxide from Reaper. I probably need to order another 6 bottles, honestly, just in case. Alright, so thinning that a little bit more. I want to be able to do just a tiny bit of this brighter green down here. And again, we're just painting over the lines between scales. We're ignoring the scales entirely. It's much easier to paint this as a bulk block of form, and then to just line to bring out the scales, than to try to do every one. And hey, lining scales, as you all should know by now, does improve your brush control. So bringing this up pretty tight. Have a little construction noise out there, so if it gets too bad, I'll close my window. Oh, black squirrel on my back fence. Hello, black squirrel. I like the black squirrels better than the gray squirrels. This one has very long ears. Okay, let's see here. So I've got a little bit. Oh, that's a very angry black squirrel. Somebody is invading her territory. Making that barking noise they do. Angry, angry squirrel. Trying to get a little bit more of this turquoise, and then we're going to do more of that bright green. Just a little bit more there. Always angry. We don't get any reds here, Korniko, so you don't get the you don't get that particular color pattern. We only have grays and blacks. I have not seen a red squirrel in this area. Used to see them in the Midwest, but I think that's the only place that I've lived that has had, that I've noticed the red squirrels. So we're bringing up that green. The cats are reacting to the angry squirrel. They're like, where's that angry squirrel? We want to chase it. Do a little bit brighter. There we go. That's looking good. Okay. And the back of the butt. Could do a little bit of this on that. Seriously, squirrel? Seriously? Is it that bad? I really don't want to close my window. Seriously? Angry squirrel. It's not angry birds. It needed to be angry squirrels. Yeah. We have a couple of outdoor cats in our neighborhood that I've seen, but we live off of a somewhat busy street, so it's not very safe to have outdoor cats in this area. I always wonder when I see them if their humans know that they're crossing that rather busy street pretty regularly. I would not feel easy with that. My indoor cats always stayed indoors all the time, 100%. So we've got a little bit of that green there. I'm going to double down on it a little bit here. I want it to be pretty solid before I put that lighter green on it. Maybe. Although, you know, what animal they think is going to be scared away by that silliness? It's like, seriously, squirrel? Seriously? There we go. Just a little bit. Going up to green here. Alright, and then the back side of this tail, it's a hard call. It's vertical to the light source, but we could probably do a little bit at the top at the back. More likely I'll do more up top here if I decide to go the shimmery, bring the shimmery into the tail itself. Although I may do a different color of the tail on the tail, I haven't decided. The tail has a big loop. Or I could make the tail match the hair, which is more likely because I like to repeat colors. And that's something David doesn't do. Like, he kind of like looked at me like, what? When I suggested he repeat colors. Because his latest bust is very, kind of, it's not, it's an analogous scheme, except he gave her bright green eyes. Like, it's got a lot of reds and browns, red browns and grays and gray browns, and it doesn't really have a lot of very bright color. But the result is like you go to the eyes, but then you freeze. But he's never used the whole repeat colors around the model thing, so he was like kind of like, huh? So it's funny when I run into that with my David, who is otherwise like very advanced mini painter. Some of the concepts that I'm familiar with from like art school is he's never encountered. Oh, my squirrels! I've not ever had a squirrel problem with my bird feeders, which is funny to me. I did have a mouse problem, but after I put in an umbrella shield, a clear shield, I no longer had the mouse problem. Alright, so that's about right. Let's see here. I want to bring it up one extra level, I think. So I haven't had to do the chili powder thing at all. The Squirrel Buster is very effective, and it works for mice too. They just can't scale down to it because of the clear sides just baffle them. Plus, when they're heavy enough that when they land on the bottom rung, it just like shuts. Because I've got it graded for a medium bird, and a decent sized mouse is heavier than a medium bird. It's either going to end up purple. If it doesn't end up like the hair Pendrake, then it's going to end up having colors of the hair in it. We'll see. I have to be careful with it, because I can't make it too distracting of a color. So what I might do is use the blue, but then use purple to highlight it instead of the greens. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cat had no cares. The cat is like, you are not going to come down here to move me, squirrel, so... So Dungeon Slime is much lighter and yellow, more yellow, than the Alchemical Green with a bit of Tianzia Jade in it. I'm going to thin it down. At least a 1-to-1, I think. But yeah, the other thing about formulas for glazing is that they don't work. Because with glazing, it's the consistency you're aiming for. And the consistency you're aiming for is colored water. And different paints are going to take different amounts of water to get there. So giving a consistency is actually pretty useless. Like giving a formula. Because it's going to over-thin some paints and under-thin others. Which is why I won't do it. Alright. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. Because I'm working on a smaller area. I'm going to actually grab my miniature series, Kalinsky. Size 1. We're doing Winsor Newton Day, apparently. And I just want a little bit of light. I had my little Bewick's wren come back this morning and find a little nut to eat, and he was very happy. And I am just happy because it's one of my favorite birds. I think they mostly prefer insects, but they eat some seeds. And he comes strolling in every once in a while to see what's up. Oh, my throat is just going today. It has been terrible for allergies here since I got back. Take your allergy pill, Quindy. I have a very itchy throat right now. If it keeps up, I'm going to have to go take a Benadryl. Actually, I should just close the window. That would probably solve it on the short term. Hold on, everybody. It started to get worse just now, and I'm like, uh-oh. Stuff in the air is attacking me. I know it's allergies. There's just nothing in my throat to, like, cough up. It's just this itch, right? Yeah, it's funny how we live in misery, right? Until we were like, oh, I guess I could have taken a pill for that. Humans are silly. I have to run downtown today to mail a copy of my book to someone. A couple of my friends like to buy direct from me. There we go. Very, very vibrant. Let's get some of that very green here, and then I'm gonna... Yeah, when you highlight one color with another and you make it very, very saturated, it does end up looking like magic. It's sparkly and magical and funky. So that's what I wanted to do on this mermaid, so... But yeah, the more I think about it, the tail, I think, is going to have to go... this part of the tail is going to have to go more purple. And I think we used wild violet for that, so... Funny, Kerniko. So magical you can't type, yes. Yeah, there aren't many minis that I find this technique suitable for, but magical creatures are one of them. We just don't paint a lot of magical creatures on here. Mostly because monsters tend to be bigger and take up too much time. We'll go with that. Yes, alright. Now, let's grab our wild violet and block in that tail. And then I'm going to take some of my void blue since I've got it out. And I'm going to do some shading on the hair and the tail. You know, I typically I don't like taking meds at all, Twisted Oma, but with allergies I make an exception. Just because it's like, otherwise I'm miserable for nothing, and the allergy meds don't really have any big, like, side effects for me. But then again, usually I'm just doing one allergy med and it takes care of most things. I don't get headaches from them, which is nice. If I got headaches, then it would be very annoying. I'm with you. Because having to take headache meds, I do not like taking... Well, I can't take ibuprofen or anything anymore. The only thing I can take is Tylenol. Because a lot of those pain meds mess with your gut, and when you've got a gut disorder, that's not smart. Yeah, I don't get the sinus headaches. That's happy for me. I just get the runny nose and the itchy throat, just specifically when there's certain things in the air out here. Like, I've never lived in a place where so many things tried to kill me that I had to take Benadryl, as I do out here. Which is funny, because the rest of my allergies seem to be a little milder out here. but there's something that gets in the air at certain times of year in the summer and fall that makes me resort to the Benadryl. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff does not have good stuff, good implications for your gut, yeah. Yeah, we've got there's some pieces on here, since it's meant to be a sign, that are like smooth or a little bit blocked in. It's a big block back here. We're just going to paint it as shadow. So we're going to tie that into the hair, and that'll let us repeat that color over the mini, which is nice. Battle Ready Miniatures has a dumb joke for us. Well, that's out of the blue, so it's not going to be pertinent. Unless it's mermaid related. Ah, yes. You're funny. That was mermaid related. I was right. It was pertinent. It's pertinent and terrible. I think Valandar would have been all over that. There we go. So that is starting to do. Now let's get our blue. Yes, other people who enjoy terrible jokes in the channel are totally entertained by that. All right. Now I am going to get my liner out because I do want to line around these things, just like we lined around various things up here. I want to start getting this looking a little crisper. So we will grab our liner and mix that up so that we can play with stuff. Yes, definitely a kid joke, definitely. Thin down my wild violet here so that I can still use it. Yeah, let's not ban. Let's not do ban jokes. Gonna thin down this brown liner a bit. So I will not use this brown liner actually on the scales, but I will use it around it on other aspects of the scenery. You don't even have to make a joke. I do that for free. Oh, Quinny. Never change, Quinny. Never change. Okie dokie, let's get this all figured out here. Mix up my liner. I'm going to have to go with a longer, thinner brush for this one, so get a little bit more water in it. Now I need a long, thin brush. So let's look for... Well, I can use my Winsor Newton Series 7 0. I beat it up quite a bit at this point, but it'll still work for lining. So I want to block in the area underneath this banner at this point. And I'm going to paint in a bit of a shadow under here too. I'm going to be taking this parchment color and bringing it down here, but I'm kind of back doing it. Oh, so it's kind of funny, guys. Have you guys heard of the lit RPG genre of a book of fantasy or science fiction? It's essentially where the book is written, where the characters are inside of a video game. So it has, like, some people would consider it very clunky, and because it's got that kind of artificiality layer of, like, characters being able to access their inventory interface and things like that, or their power interface. So I had, like, read something of it a while ago. I think I read Rachel Aaron's series that she did, and I was like, yeah. I actually wrote a lit RPG story a long time ago. Didn't before it was really a thing, but I had an idea and I wanted to write it, so I did. It was when I was doing a lot of short stories. But yesterday I got on a place called Royal Road, which is like Wattpad, only smaller and much more into the lit RPG, fantasy, and sci-fi. Like, it's Wattpad has a lot of romance on it also, and just random other stuff. But Royal Road is very, very fantasy, sci-fi, and it's all free. Although many of the best authors on there have, like, Patreons, so you can toss them, you know, a little bit of money and appreciation and stuff. So I found a guy on there yesterday. I just went over just to see what was on there, and I clicked on one of the lit RPGs that came up as, you know, new and hot, etc. This guy is not a bad writer at all. I'll have to look up what the lit RPG itself is. It's not his main one. His main one is apparently astonishingly popular. He might even be #1 on the platform. But not bad at all. I'm totally addicted to it already. And he has a Patreon. He doesn't have like a tip jar or anything, but he does have a Patreon. I clicked through just to look at what his tiers were. He is making almost $10,000 a month from publishing his free stories on Royal Road. Which was pretty impressive. Definitely, like, the top. He's got to be the highest paid person on that platform. Yeah. So this is the thing, right? And you have the problem with Wattpad is it's huge, right? It's hard to get visible on Wattpad. Although if you're consistent and you publish in one of the popular genres on Wattpad, you can get some eyes. But if you do the work and you're consistent and you post your stories and your stories are good, and then you have your Patreon, even though people on these platforms aren't used to paying to get a book, like, you know, like paying to get, like, an ebook, they will pay you on your Patreon monthly to continue writing a story they like. Yeah, so this guy writes nothing but lit RPG. He has one very long-running book, that seems to be wildly popular on the platform, and then this is his new one. And I can see why the genre is addictive, right? Because you've got that leveling aspect, right? You want to see the character level. You want to see what their powers do as they get, you know, bigger. And so it's funny. But yeah, I was impressed. I was like, I had no idea. Yeah. Yeah, it is a popular genre with avid readers. I knew that. And I can see why. Like I said, it's that level up thing, right? It's really gratifying. It feels like you're doing it yourself, except you're not. You're just reading the story. So if you can not only do the RPG aspect well, but you're also a good storyteller, and your characters are fun, Yeah, like it's fun to read. Like it I would call it I categorize it as what I would call popcorn fiction. I used to read like the BattleTech novels and I called those popcorn fiction. Popcorn fiction does not make big emotional demands on you. It's just freaking entertaining and you just devour it. And so that this lit RPG stuff may be my popcorn fiction. But yeah, I'll have to look up the author's name and the story's name because it's free to read. So if you're interested, you could just go read it. And some people probably wouldn't like it. Like I said, you have to it involves a very large suspension of disbelief because of the role playing game, because of the computer game aspect of it. But if you can buy that, if you can buy into that and just go, okay, this is how this fictional world works. This is pretty much if I was inside my favorite video game and my character was actually a character with a personality and you know, stuff. It was autonomous. If you can buy into that, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah, nothing wrong with popcorn fiction. We all need a little popcorn fiction every once in a while. Like when I'm stressed, I reach for popcorn fiction. So yeah. I don't know, if I read a lot of lit RPG, I could write a lit RPG, but I like my fantasy mythic fantasy better. It would be something that would be fun to experiment with because it does depend heavily on really fun world building, which is in my wheelhouse. I'll just add like a possible lit RPG project to my things I would like to do in the future. Oh, maybe that's the werewolf fanfic that I always joke about writing. I can create a world based off of Werewolf the Apocalypse and change enough for it to be unique and write a lit RPG based on that. That would be fun. I'll put it on my list along with my cozy fantasy and my urban fantasy and my paranormal romance, right? Put it on the list. So I'm just gonna block in some of this stuff that's not really sculpted, that's just meant to be dark space. I'm gonna block it in dark. That essentially says, don't look at this. That's what you're telling the viewer. The sentient dungeon ones. Yeah, that would be fun. I am a very fast reader. Yeah, I'm a very fast reader, so my biggest problem is that I just don't have a lot of time to read anymore. Since I walk outside now and I don't walk on the treadmill. Back when I was walking on the treadmill back in Texas, when I was doing treadmill like every night, I got a lot of reading done. Oh, I missed some spots. Yeah, I could see that the sentient dungeon ones could be fun. Yeah, I'll let you guys know what this author name and story are. I'll write it down tonight when I'm reading. Then you can look them up if you feel like it. Like I said, not a bad writer at all. Like, I can see why they're top notch. Especially because one of the things that Royal Road is known for is like that it's an amateur writer kind of thing. So given that this guy is like on a platform like that, but honestly, I find them pretty enjoyable. So yeah, that was my writing exploration, my reading exploration yesterday. I was discovering. And I also did it for research purposes because I have thought about going on Wattpad or another thing with just like a fun story that I didn't, or a fanfic story, something I could never actually publish, just to try it out. So it was kind of research as well. And what I noticed is, because it's all serialized, of course, they aren't actually posting up chapters when they're saying chapter. Like every chapter, quote unquote, is just, you know, like a probably, I would say a 1,000 to 2,000 word read. And what I realized when I was reading this guy's work is he's actually not posting a chapter. He's posting a scene. So essentially, if for me, my chapters tend to have 2 to 3 different scenes in them. So that's how he's getting like it made it a lot more accessible because it's like, man, I'd have to write a chapter, I'd have to post a chapter every day. Actually, no, you only have to post a scene every day. You call it a chapter. It's more of a serialization that way. You're breaking it down even further. So that was interesting. That was a tactic I'll remember if I decide to do that kind of thing. It would have to be a fun experiment kind of thing that I did. I'd have to write it around the Bear Kings books. Yeah, well, technical documents, you're trying to absorb information. Dungeon core lit is your jam. That's funny. Okay, so, alright then. Where do you guys read those? Are they books or are they on, like, Wattpad or Royal Road? Like, and give me your favorite sentient dungeon lit RPG. Either an author or a book, but preferably an actual book. So, the best one, in your opinion. Amazon eBooks, okay, great. I've got KU. And what's your favorite? Or you can give me two favorites if you can't decide. Because I'm liking this stuff, and I think I might just use it as kind of a palate cleanser when I need to just relax. Oh, yeah, I imagine it's popular in East Asian. Yep. Sure. Yeah, and remember that I like good writing, so, But I also just appreciate a good story. If the writing is okay, but it's a really good storyteller, I appreciate that too. So yeah, look up your favorite, come back to me, give me reading. Give me reading material. Because I think I could get into this genre. And it's just another way to play with fantasy, right? And fantasy is my love. Like, fantasy is what I write. I'm never writing anything but fantasy. I had an idea for a sci-fi series once, but then I was like, you know what? I could do this with a fantasy series and it'd be much more fun. Much more fun and not as science-y. I'm just a fantasy writer. It's what it is. I've accepted it. I've moved on. But that doesn't stop me from wanting to write something in every flavor of fantasy I can think of. I'm like, ooh, shiny, ooh. Okay, so down here we've got kind of a combo. We've got material that's been sculpted, but it's in deep shadow. So I'm going to block in everything behind here. I'm going to grab my big brush for this one. Okay, hold on. Dinosaur Dungeon. Let me make a note. Dinosaur Dungeon already found. Sounds fun. All right, Sir Gambit, let me write it down. I will check them out. Yeah, sometimes I just, I do a lot of work, and sometimes at the end of the night, I honestly just want to sit in the room with David and just read. And so that's what this stuff is great for. Dungeon Heart, all right. I'm not gonna judge you. Dude, come on, Kodiak. Like, okay, you guys want my favorite badly written book ever? Like, here you go. Like, some of you have probably read it. It went big on Kindle. The series has gone big on Kindle. But the writing is really awkward and painful in parts for me, but the storytelling is so good that I had to freaking devour these books. And this is where it comes out. It's like all about story, people. If you can write great prose, like I love great prose, I write pretty decent prose, but if you've got a good story and I like your characters, I'm going to bull through your prose even if it's bad. Like, it can't be too bad, but if you just have awkward moments, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. So my favorite, so you can judge me, or not judge me, Kodiak. It's called House Witch. Pick up the first one. The writing does get better. Like, there are 3 books in the first series. But, okay, here we are. But I will not judge you. These are popcorn fiction. We're not looking for literature here. We're not looking for literature. We're just looking for something just fun, right? Just fun. Bone Dungeon. Hold on. Elemental Dungeon 1. And anybody else who's intrigued. Like I said, not always the best written, but if you need something just to drag your brain away and just like give you a relaxing evening, the Crafters. Oh, the Crafters Dungeon sounds really good. Oh, I'm a crafting type person in games. Oh, now I'm intrigued. I might have to run out and buy that right away. Thanks, Kodiak. If I really like The ones that you guys have given me, I'm going to bug you for more. Yeah, and see, I don't like R.A.'s prose very much, but I did read the first Drizzt books. I haven't gone back to R.A. Since I was, like, teenage, though. The Crafter's Dungeon, Dungeon Core novel. All right, thank you very much. That way, when I run out of stuff to read on my current one, because it's not a done story, the one that I'm reading right now is not finished, book one, then I can go and read these. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I love crafting. So that's probably just going to be my kryptonite right there. I'm just going to be like, wow. Ah, yay. Yes. So yeah, anybody who's ever been interested or curious about Lit RPG, there you go. You've got some recommends. Or you can wait for me to read the ones that these guys recommended and tell you which one I like the best. But anyway. Because my thing is that when I'm actively writing, I've mentioned this before, I cannot read my own genre or anything that's too close. But the Lit RPG, because of the gaming interface element, doesn't feel like my genre at all. So I feel like I can still read it, but still write my stuff, which is rare. Like, usually I have to read something like Cozy Mysteries when I'm writing. I usually can't read any fantasy or even sci-fi. But the Lit RPG feels like it's just different, so maybe I'll be able to do both. Yeah, we're talking about, I started reading a Lit RPG book that's on Royal Road for free, Richard, and I'm actually, even though the prose is not bad, I would say an average writer, average to a cut above writer, but the storytelling and the character progression and the characters, that's fun. The world, his world, I got into his world, I'm like, all right, I want to see where he's taking this. So then I asked my audience here, the couple people who are into Lit RPG, to recommend a couple more books for me. And I mentioned my favorite because Kodiak was afraid I was going to judge him when I read these. I mentioned my favorite bad book that I enjoyed reading anyway, which was House Witch. You can look up House Witch on Amazon. It's on Kindle Unlimited. They're longer books. And the author has some painfully, like, stilted prose at times, but his characters are good. His situations are good. You have fun with the book, right? And I just couldn't, I read all three. I just finished the third one, actually. I found the third one to be actually not as great as the others. I loved the first one, I think, the best. The second one was also very good. But yeah. So it's books where the prose might be not there, but the story is there, or the world is there, or the characters are great. Because writers have all these different free cards, right? We all have different strengths and skills. So you could have a writer that maybe is not the best grammatist, but is an amazing storyteller, right? You can't. Nora Roberts isn't a bad writer. Nora Roberts, if you consider Nora Roberts' books as all one series, there's 500 right there, probably. Yeah, it just seems, yeah. Nora publishes under two, she's J.D. Robb and Nora Roberts, and she publishes 4 books a year. And she did point out, she published more at first, and people were like, what the heck, do you have a ghostwriter? And she had a lot of books that were just kind of trunked that she was able to rework in her early days, once she started selling, and people were like, more please. She's still a huge exception because New York typically does not want more than 1 book a year from a writer, which is why pen name became a thing. But with her stuff just sells like freaking hotcakes. So she's the one that's able to kill the curve. She's the exception. But yeah, so. But yeah, the thing I mentioned that some of the newer people who came on might have missed is that I was looking at this because I was looking at it for potential just to try someday to put stuff up on Royal Road for free and maybe have a writing Patreon link. I think that you need to be consistent and you need to finish stories. People need to love your stuff, to be successful at it. But the guy that I brought up that started this discussion has essentially is putting up his stories for free. He has one really long running one and one he just started like a month ago, I think. The one that I'm reading is the new one. But he is making almost $10,000 a month on Patreon right now. Just from people reading his free fiction and wanting to support him. So, heck, I might toss him up. Because the lowest level is just like $1.50. You don't get anything, but you just support the artist. And I'm like, And his levels are real easy. It's like, if you support him, you get like unpublished chapters early. So essentially, you're reading at like either 10 or 20 chapters ahead of the story curve. So you get content, early access to content, essentially. All right, so I've got most of that blocked in. You can see how that just disappears. You can see that there's detail under there, but we really don't care about it. Like, it's when you're looking at the figure, you're not even going to see it. See, this is our typical viewing angle. And that banner overhangs everything. So you really don't need to worry about that, painting that stuff, guys. I'll probably put a tiny highlight just on the back of those, like, the pylons, but not much because it's in shadow. Yeah. The first 30 of them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, webcomics. That makes sense, Richard. Like, and I do read a couple of webcomics. I read Girl Genius. I read Gunner Craig Court. And I read a really fantastic but possibly lesser known one called Wildlife, with wild having an E on it. About a guy who rents a house off of Craigslist and finds out it's haunted. But it's so much more than that. It's an urban fantasy. Guy who rents a house off of Craigslist and finds himself emerged not only in a haunted house, but in a supernatural world that's focused around this little podunk town in Oklahoma and the mythology surrounding it. It's pretty darn good. And Pascal Lepas, who's the artist and storyteller, is a really, really good artist. But yeah, like you, Richard, I don't read a lot nowadays, but I do find often, because I've just taken so much onto myself with the publishing and the Patreon, I find that many nights, I'm just too tired to like do much else creative. And I'm trying to play fewer video games because they can mess with my shoulder. They make my shoulders really tight. And my arms and hands don't really like them that much after a while, so... But sometimes I just like want to just sit and read with David in the other room. And so now I'm reading more than I have for a while. Thus, the lit RPG digression. All right, I'm going to pop some water into the blue and we're going to start shading the hair and the tail. Wildlife. Yeah, 2 words. You spelled it correctly, Kerniko. Just put a space between the E and the L. It does have some scary moments, but it also has some just freaking cool. It's just a freaking cool story. And she's still writing it. It's on several chapters. But she's I really love her art too, her art style. Yeah, I know. And then now if you discover it, Kerniko, you can just binge read up to the current. That'll take you a while. That's a great thing about discovering. I didn't start reading Girl Genius until they were, oh gosh, I like binge read Girl Genius for weeks. I was so far behind. Yeah, definitely check it out. If you like urban fantasy webcomic with good art and a good story, yes, Wildlife. Okay, so let's get this void blue. Let's get some water in it. Thin it down a bit. I want it to be shadows. Because we're doing this kind of color shift thing, There's a chance that the hair will end up looking that way, but that'll be fine. Oh, it's 11 already. Man, talking about bad books and the time flies. Good bad books. Good bad books. So, let's see here. I'm going to have to do some blending, I think, for this. Some wet blends. To get the blue to blend in nicely. It'll take us down to an indigo. A very pretty indigo. The thing I think that I'm going to run into, though, is that the void blue isn't that much darker than the violet, so I may need to go down to a nightmare black or something. Sweet. But yeah, I just appreciate you reading my books, Richard. Because you catch awesome stuff, so... You and Zachariah and Turgeon all have different... It's cool because you all actually are different kinds of readers. In a way, you catch different types of things, which is very valuable. Like, I can't even say... There are so many people on my self-published Reddit complaining that they can't find good beta readers, and I just treasure you guys. Because you are so much better. Like, I can't even talk in those threads anymore because people are just going to be like, because I have amazing betas. And I just got lucky. I just got lucky and found you guys. But yeah, you're totally, totally top notch. And I value your feedback so much. It is so useful. So yeah, just doing some wet blending here between the wild violet and the void blue, just trying to get some transitions here. Let's get a little closer so you guys can see. So it's going to start looking magical just like this stuff because we're just painting with like really bright colors. Like that's why we needed the skin tone to be more of a regular skin tone, and we're going to need the brown down here a lot to ground the figure. I find that if you go too Technicolor with too many aspects of the figure, it starts to look just weird and fake. You need something realistic to ground it. So the anchor, the pylons being a brown, earthy colors on rope and on the banner being a neutral cream, having those kind of things is going to help balance out the otherwise woohoo magic of this figure. But yeah, I'm never going to judge any of you for what you read. Like, I read these days, if a story grabs me or a world grabs me or a character grabs me, even if the writing is not like nearly where I would like it to be, I'm still all in. Because, it's cool. But then there are people like, I think I brought her up before, like Louise Penny, who wrote the Inspector Gamache series, which is a mystery series set in Quebec. And it's kind of, it has many attributes of a cozy, but it doesn't too, because the main character is not female, not an amateur, but it does have a quirky setting with quirky characters, and you love them. But her writing is like up here, like just at the top. Like she's just like, if I out of a 10, she's like, for me, she's like a 9.6. Like, ugh. She just, like, I picked up that book and I'm like, this is the mystery series I have been waiting for all my life. Like, the prose is top notch, and the story is great, and the setting is fantastic, and the characters are realistic, but you love them anyway. It's like, it's just, yes. Yeah. It's good. So, that's like, so I can enjoy both, though. I can enjoy that really, really well-written mystery series. And I also can enjoy, reading The House Witch, which is totally not nearly as well-written, but has quirky characters and a fun magic system. Inspector Gamache. So, Louise Penny. Let me grab my Kindle. I'll just show you one of them, and then you'll have the thing. The thing. Where's my library? I need to go down because I haven't read the latest. I haven't started the latest one. Wow, it's been a while. Here we go. Chief Inspector Gamache Mysteries by Penny Louise. I am on the 13th book. There's 20. There might be 21 by now. Got it? And then I think that was... I've been rereading some of my older stuff too. But yeah. So yeah, if you like a good mystery series, a good well-written mystery series, it's also fun because she does a lot of Quebec history, and that's something that I've never, I don't know Quebec history. I'm some freaking American. Do they tell us anything about Canadian history in America? No. But she chooses some really cool, interesting, a lot of her stories are based on actual things that happened in Quebec history, but just changed a little bit. Made a bit different so she can use them in the story. And she'll always have an author's note where she talks about what she's drawn on, and it's fantastic. I love author's notes, which is why I do them. I'm always interested if there's a story behind the story, or what the author has to say about writing in general, or their world, or what was happening to them while they wrote a book, or the book itself. A little bit more, and we'll cap this soon since it's after 11. But yeah, we talked a lot about books today. Yay, books. Yay, books. But yeah, I am gonna hopefully finish my $2 PDF for my Patreon today, and then I can spend tomorrow working on North of the Wind. And hopefully, within a couple days, you guys will see a sneak preview of the cover for North of the Wind. I am kind of sad because I wanted to do... There was one particular thing I wanted to kind of work into North of the Wind, but I think North of the Wind has enough going on already, and I have to back off and do that in another book. That's the problem with having a big world with so many, factions and ideas. You're like, ooh, I could... we're in the right area of the world for X. And then you're like, oh, but I just don't have room to deal with X. More books, yes. Oh, Kiki. Kiki's like, whoa, whoa. She's making little noises. Because she's like, she knows. She knows that it's time and I'm going over time. Am I going over time, Kiki? Are you my alarm dog? So you see how when you start putting a lot of that blue in, it turns indigo. You lose that purple. And that's because Wild Violet actually is a fairly blue purple to begin with. So we'll reverse that, though. We'll come back at it with some runic glow and do some pink highlights, and it'll be fun. So we'll have a very, very color shifty mermaid, and I'm not done with those scales, obviously, but I wanted to start getting an idea of how the rest of it. Now, the good thing about cooling down this purple is that otherwise it would be very warm, and it would tend to draw the eye a lot. I didn't want it to draw the eye down here. So the skin tone is going to help with that, right? The skin tone is the lightest thing on the model. So it's going to pull the eye right up here first, and then the eye is going to zoom down to all these pretty colors and do that. And it'll help if I can repeat some really bright colors like up around her face. So I probably will bring the hair up